Hey everyone, not like this is the first story of something like this, but I found this particular article and this particular story to be so disturbing and so profound and such a representation of what is the problem with having the border just open with Trudeau's tweets. Come one, come all, right? What, fleeing Trump? I mean, like I say, the fact that Trudeau was so reckless in his virtue signaling that he would suggest that people should be able to come across the border. And like I say, they took him up on his offer. We're seeing to the tune of, what was the report I just did in a video the other day? What was it? 50,000 per year now of people that are claiming asylum. And I mean, if you're in Canada, think about it. We have an ocean to the east and an ocean to the and the Arctic to the north. So the only way these people are coming and pouring across the border in this country, there's only one place they're coming from, and that's from the United States. And they're definitely not fleeing an oppressive regime or a war-torn country if they're coming from the United States. These are economic migrants. These are the people that are shopping around to see where they can get the most added benefits and entitlements from these Western countries. Yes, there are exceptions. Yes, there are outliers. Yes, there are people that are maybe, like there would probably be a very, very tiny minority of these people that actually are fleeing persecution. But once again, it isn't the ones that have already landed in the United States. And like I say, I haven't heard so far where there's been planes hijacked where they're coming across the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific. No, they're coming predominantly through the United States. Now, some might be coming up through the South American corridor, but once again, that's a border issue that Trump himself is trying to deal with. But at least Trump is trying to deal with it. In Canada, under the federal Liberals, it's the exact opposite. Not only are the Liberals not caring about securing our borders, but they want to maintain it as open as possible so they can increase their voter base, maintain the established and entrenched bureaucratic state, and those who represent the public sector, big government, because those are all the people, or like I say, the big corporations, because those are all the people that benefit from mass immigration or these asylum seekers. It's not the average taxpayer, it's not the average consumer, and it's definitely not those who are competing for jobs or wages in this country. But this, like I say, is a blatant example of the kind of devastation that can happen by allowing your borders to be open and allowing the mass influx of illegal immigrants come to this country like it has been happening since the federal Liberals come to power. Headline out of CBC News, Montreal, asylum seeker sentenced for sexually assaulting patient in Montreal psych ward. Quebec Court Judge Dennis Galistatos called Owolabi Adejojo's behavior despicable. It's being reported by Steve Rukavina, May 14th, 2019. A man from Nigeria who was claiming asylum in Canada has been sentenced to 52 months in prison for sexually assaulting a woman in a psychiatric ward at a Montreal hospital. Quebec Court Judge Dennis Galistatos sentenced 40-year-old Owolabi Adejojo in March, calling his behavior despicable. The assaults took place in February 2018, 1 month after Adejojo entered Canada from the U.S. and filed a refugee claim. A few months before that, Adejojo was accused of attacking two men with a beer bottle in Baltimore. It's not clear how Adejojo was able to get into Canada, why authorities didn't seem to be aware of his assault charges in the U.S., or how he ended up in the psychiatric ward. I must confess that the lack of detail and information given to the court by the defense about the accused's personal situation was highly unusual and somewhat unsettling, Galistatos noted in his decision. The court is left completely in the dark about who he is and what his personal circumstances are. The stuff of nightmares. The victim is a 57-year-old woman who was admitted to the psychiatric ward after her family noticed an alarming shift in her behavior and was worried she may harm herself. She was committed to the psychiatric ward against her will by court order. That's actually another issue, and I won't even delve into it, but yeah, making any member of your family a ward of the state, well, I mean, let me just say first and foremost, really, really, really bad idea. Imagine the irony of going to a hospital for help, desperately needing help, only to be harmed instead, Galiatsatos said. Now compound that irony exponentially. Imagine being forced to remain at the hospital against your will, by court order no less, on the basis that it is in your best interest. only to get violated in the most opportunistic fashion, falling prey to a man who capitalized on your weakness and vulnerability, he continued. It is, to borrow an expression, the stuff of nightmares. Adejojo was a patient in the psychiatric ward at the same time as the victim in February 2018. He assaulted her 3 times over 2 days in the cafeteria, the decision says. The victim didn't initially report these assaults and was largely passive while they occurred, although she did ask Adejojo to stop several times during the first assault. The morning of the 3rd assault, Adejojo was discharged from the ward, but staff allowed him to stay for lunch because it was extremely cold outside, which is standard practice. He brought the victim to a corner of the cafeteria, kissed her, and then penetrated her underneath their hospital gowns. It was only when a doctor happened upon them that the assault stopped. Due to her mental illness and her significantly distorted cognitive abilities, the victim was unable to realize that she could decline to participate. Her state of vulnerability was manifest, Galiasato said. The accused crime ranks sky high on the repugnant scale. His predatory behavior was as despicable as possible. Anyways, folks, I'll post a link to this article in the description of the video below. But once again, like I say, once again, crimes are going to happen even from domestic idiots or assholes, right? We understand this, but to have it happen under this kind of circumstance and this kind of scenario, when once again, at the very least, you could definitely prevent this by preventing illegals to coming across this border. I mean, come on. Like, we all have to abide by a good goddamn billion fucking laws in this country. I mean, at the very least, you should force people to at least abide by one simple law, if they're not part of this country, is you can't cross the border illegally and come into this country. Pretty minimal fucking standards as far as I'm concerned, right? I mean, there's nothing outrageous. There's nothing harmful towards that. It's just, you don't get to cross international borders or boundaries willy-nilly so that shit like this can happen. Because once again, it's hard enough, and I get it, even for the domestic police and all, to even, figure out who the criminals are in this country. Well, you're not going to figure that out until they actually commit a crime. But once again, at the very least, you can decline or decrease the possibility of this kind of stuff from happening by at least preventing a whole lot of people from flooding across the border illegally. Because think about it, the kind of person that's willing to cross an international border illegally, I mean, that already puts you in a weird mindset. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine many circumstances where I would feel emboldened enough to cross an international border or boundary illegally. I can't, and like I said, unless there was someone literally chasing me down, gun in hand, threatening my life. That's about one of the few scenarios that I could figure out where that would say, like, yes, just run to the border and hope that somebody will give me the ability to enter their country so I can escape that immediate threat to my life. That would be about the only thing that I could conjure up that would make sense as far as just crossing borders, international borders, illegally. But I mean, look at the picture you've seen, especially Roxham Road. They're coming there. They're not in any rush. They're getting there, delivered there by taxis, cabs, like buses. They're walking with their nice fancy luggage across the border down that nice paved road. Nobody seems to be fleeing shit. I mean, if you're fleeing something because you feel that your life's in danger, you look a whole lot different than the kind of representation and the kind of pictures and the kind of video footage we've seen that's representative of these illegal border crossers, right? So once again, completely out of touch with reality. But the political hacks, especially the federal liberals, or those who rely on these people to come in this country that will now be part of their voting base, like I say, they'll turn a blind eye to it. They don't give a shit. They're living in their gated communities. They're not going to have to deal with this gentleman, right? None of these elitists that are making the political decisions or the so-called legal decisions in this country, they're not going to have to deal with any of this stuff, which is why they don't really care. But you as the average Canadian, yeah, you really should care. And if you don't, I guess you're probably a liberal supporter as well, huh? It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.